back to JavaScript Playground. In this video, we will talk about JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It is basically a text format that makes it easy to share data between clients and servers. Its origin is based on how JavaScript object works. So that's why it looks like a JavaScript object, but remember it is different from a JavaScript object. Regardless of the fact that it has its origin from JavaScript, it is widely used across many programming languages like C, Ruby, Python, PHP, etc. To create a JavaScript object, this is what we do. So var, let's say mObject, say name, John, and age, say 28. Now to write the same thing as JSON, you just need to wrap these keys into double quotes. And now this is a JSON object. And to access the values, we can simply do mObject.name, just like we would do with a normal JavaScript object. Say console log mObject.name. And if I run the code, it gives me John. Similarly, if I do age, it gives me 28. So it works just like a JavaScript object. Similarly, we have worked with arrays in the past. So to create an array, we can do something like this. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And to access a value, we can simply do array, and we can give it a position, say 0. So when you run the code, you get 1, because that's the value at position 0 inside this array. Now say instead of having these numbers, we had JSON objects. So let's copy it. Let's say we had this JSON object. We had 3 JSON objects, and let's change the name. Say John, Claire, and Smith. And again, to access the value, we can still use the same way. So when I run the code, it gives me this object, age 28 and name John, which is the first object inside that array. Now this array of JSON objects is called JSON array. So we already saw to access an element, we can access it the way we would do with a normal array. So array, square brackets, and whatever position. And to access a specific key, first we select the element. So this gives us an object dot, let's say, name. So when I run the code, it gives me John. So accessing values is as simple as that. Now, one of the biggest benefits of using JSON object is that it can be converted to a string. And that string can be converted back to the JSON object. Now, for this purpose, JSON provides us with 2 methods, Json.Stringify. And inside the parenthesis, we pass the JSON object. So let's give it a try. Let's comment this one for now. So if you do object.toString, it just gives you a string with this object inside. You don't get access to the value. But if you use Json.Stringify and you pass this object as an argument, it converts your object into a string. And now you can store this string in your browser storage or whatever way you like. And to convert it back to the JSON, we can simply do, let's just put it in a variable first. So str.json. So we can put this here. And if I run the code, everything still works fine. And to convert this JSON string back to JSON, we can use another function called json.parse. And we pass this JSON string inside the parenthesis. And now if I run my code, it gives us this object. Unlike JavaScript object, JSON cannot hold 2 types of values, which are undefined and functions. So if you try to add a function or undefined in your JSON object and you convert a JSON object into a string, it just ignores the keys. Let's give it a try. Let's say last name and undefined. If I run my code again, it just ignores it. There's no last name key inside here. But if this was Lark, it added another key, last name, and over here in the object itself, you've got another key, last name. Similarly, say you had a function, say get name, and this just returns your current name. Sorry, it just returns your name property. And if I run this code, it again ignores the property which has the value function. So remember that. Now that we've talked about what values it cannot hold, let's also talk about the kind of values which it accepts. So it accepts a string, number, an object, an array, boolean, and null. So let's give those a try. So let's say married. So you can give it a boolean value, say false. And if I run the code, it works. Similarly, you can give it an array. Let's say score, say 22, 25, 24, 21, 20. If I run the code, we get the array. We've already seen strings and numbers. You can also give it null. So if there's no value, we can simply give it a null. So when I try again, it still works. And similarly, we can give another object. Let's say maths, and this key needs to be in double quotes. So maths, let's say 25, and science, let's say 24. And when I run the code again, it parses properly. So just remember all these small concepts. We'll be using those in the coming videos. And that's all for today.